You mentioned this president's policies. There's so much to try and unpack. Say I'm not going into detail on the tariffs, but there's one other element to this is a bunch of initiatives designed to boost US shipbuilding, the US merchant fleet. One of those initiatives could see shipping paying $1.5 million per port call. I think the World Shipping Organization, well, was it the World Council on Shipping, World Shipping Organization? No, Soren Toft at TPM. We'll stick with that one. $20
Yeah.
billion this would cost lines a year. It might see other secondary ports cut out as well. Now, I'm not sure if all those costs will end up coming through, or if this would even be implemented, or that we wouldn't find some sort of workaround about this, and maybe the cost per container wouldn't even be that high, depending on how all this plays out. And I can also see, and I know from some of your LinkedIn posts, you're not going to agree with me on this. There's a little bit of logic if you were assuming a very conflicted world and a US-China conflict, then this industrialized China able to bang out hundreds of ships a year with all of these seafarers, from a geopolitical point of view, building up the US manufacturing base and the US shipbuilding base could make geopolitical sense. Your view is it probably doesn't, and it's going to be bad for freight bias.
Well, look, I've been following this industry, and especially how China is acting in the world for a long time. Don't think that I don't see this. There's certainly concerns over having China be so dominant in the maritime world, for sure. But I think it's a little bit of a too little, too late. And certainly we should be looking at building more, especially military. Our military has been quite depleted. Obviously, we need to be building more military ships. And but on the container side, what I don't like about this is the extent to the fee, which is quite substantial, and it feeling like what China did was simply fill a void, right? People need vessels. This was not something that came out of nowhere. The container carriers made a ton of money during COVID. They needed new ships for environmental reasons, as well as their belief that the market will continue to fill these ships. Somebody had to build them. We don't build ships anymore here. We don't build a lot of things in the US for reasons that are quite clear. That we have people want to, the people manufacturing in the US are going to make a lot more money. So it costs more. I would even argue that we have younger generations now that have no interest in being in manufacturing. So I don't know where we're going to find all these laborers to build all these great things that the president thinks we're going to build. But, in the short term, it does nothing but cause I don't want to get too vicious here, because this to me, there's been plenty of other people outside of me that have said that this potential fee on the carriers per port is just outrageous, and shows, if nothing else, that there are not very many people in this administration that really understand shipping and the global supply chain. So for me, it's more that it's penalizing the carriers for doing nothing more than buying ships from countries that make ships, which is China, Korea, and Japan. And the penalty is not going to be paid by the carriers. We all know that. They will pass it along in the cost of the freight, which will dribble down to the retailers, which will more than likely be passed along to the consumer. So to me, it's just a flagrant misunderstanding of who you're angry at and who actually will pay the price. So whether or not, we bring shipbuilding back to the US, maybe it'll happen. But, right now, all the studies, everything I've read, a vessel made here would be 4 times as expensive as the other 3 countries that are making ships. So I don't know who would buy them.
Yeah, I guess some of the carriers might be scared off by some of the labor rates at ports that they've been sort of forced to pay in the latest settlements, with the threat of closure of those ports.
Yep.
on first on the West Coast and then this year on the Eastern Gulf coasts. So I guess the labor thing would be a factor if you want your ships on time at a decent cost. But then we did see CMA CGM commit to spending quite a lot of money on US shipbuilding logistics. Well, the
Right.
specifics weren't exactly there on that story,
Right.
but that's a
Right.
positive, or is it just a political win?
Oh, I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of, you know, sort of walking this fine line of pandering to the administration, because we all know that is something he expects, is that people will, you know, say yes and sort of bow their head. And so but I think it was more of a gesture. We'll see. I mean, and again, it takes 3 years to build a vessel, so we'll see. But I'm hard pressed to think that CMA is really going to pay 4 times as much for a vessel they could get somewhere else. So I think they're offering, it was more about, we're going to put a big air freight facility here, and that's all great. I mean, obviously the US will always be an important part of the global supply chain. I hope, regardless of what happens with the tariffs. I hope people continue to want to, buy our products and let us buy products that aren't too horribly expensive.